will begin with a few questions that I have prepared. As we know, the path to becoming an artist and an arts administrator is often one that we can say is destined and predetermined. But I am interested if you will share with us, how did you determine that you would create a life and career dedicated to arts and theater?
Well, I started out as a child in a family that loved the arts. My grandmother spoke poetry to me as my bedtime stories. My aunt left this world humming and singing. And my grandfather was a minister. And so the power of story and music was like breath to me. And so I also was raised to understand that you were supposed to be contribution, and that there was an expectation that you would be, right? So you kind of go through life kind of meandering, not quite focused on anything, and then you're out of high school, and then you're in college, and then you're out of college, right? And during the time that was happening, the world for Black people was changing, and so the kind of Black movement was going on. And so that became a real important part of who it was that I became. I started off my work being a human service planner and looking at our communities and all of the needs that we had. And after about 20 years of doing that, and then on the side doing church things and community things, and particularly working in the cultural community, where theater was coming alive, poetry was powerful, and I realized that there was something that wasn't happening in terms of how culture was powerful with almost no resources. And then when we had resources, the resources did good, but they weren't long-standing good, right? And so when I got to that midlife moment, that crisis moment, I decided I was going to step out on faith. And part of what pushed me out there was a minister who gave me a scripture that's really become the mantra for my life. It's Habakkuk 2:2. Which says, write the vision down plainly on tablets, because the vision has its time. It presses on to fulfillment, and it will not disappoint. If it delays, wait for it, for it will surely come. And kind of armed with that, and an idea that culture combined with community work could be more powerful than either thing alone, I stepped out with the understanding that I wasn't by myself, because there was an artist who was kind of struggling with the same thing, and that was Doug Red. He had been a visual artist all his life, a community visual artist all his life, and he wanted to do more. He thought that art could do more. And so we started kind of dreaming up this concept, very much inspired by the work that had happened in New Orleans with the Tucson Theater, with Ahiniana, with Dogway, and with Third World up in Chicago, the Panthers. All of these were places where people were getting it, that helping us know who we were, where we came from, what the power and the spirit of creativity and culture were, what they could manage to do in terms of calling people forward to something bigger. And so that was the fertilizer. The rest of it has been a kind of providence, like not having anything to go back to, so continuing to go forward, even though it was hard. You knew that you didn't have any place to go back to, so you just worked through the hard parts. And I find myself living outside of my dreams now. It's like I don't know from day to day. This winds up being something that just came to me, out of left field. It's like the notion of being a national honoree for you is a great honor, but it's like, it's not something that I expected, right? And that's what my life is like now. And it's not so much about happening to me, but happening to the work. The strife in the world right now is a fertilizing ground for the work that we're all doing, where culture is at the bedrock, because it is the bedrock of human existence. And so I just salute the festival for understanding that the theater is a great place for us to learn from. And I salute all of the work that we are all doing in the cultural world and in the art world, because there is a spiritual track that we're not working on when we're not working inside of the culture. And so more of us have to do that. It's part of why the church works, because it's working on the cultural track. And we've gotten so much to dealing with our heads. And I'll end by quoting, I started calling him the Prophet Prince, since he's passed on. And one of the things that Prince once said was that he said, one day we will learn to to use our brains for what they were intended for, to be a file cabinet, and we start to think with our hearts. And art works down the art track. It works down the spiritual
I
track.
would start by saying it started at an early age. I started out as a musician at about the age of 4. In my community, in every home, it seemed to be a piano. And you had to learn how to play the piano, you had to learn how to dance, you had to learn how to write poetry, you had to have some type of artistic outlet, not just your schoolwork, but that extra time was spent in art. And I learned to play at that early age. My father sat down and he played boogie woogie. And I sat down behind him and I played the boogie woogie. And they noticed at that time, okay, we got a piano player. But that's my start, my early start in art. But I would say that art is really a spiritual climb, a spiritual love, a spiritual healing for the mind, the soul, and the body. And my experience as a musician and being in the home with a sister and brother that were visual artists has just given me the opportunity to continue to build on my talents, but also to be able to use my talents creatively and work in arts administration. I didn't just stumble upon being in arts administration. I've always been in nonprofit administration for many years. But as a result of having an artistic background and having arts administration background, I was able to merge the two and really to be able to strive for and be paid for what I really like to do. Number 1, grants management. I like to see anyone and everyone who has the opportunity to secure resources to be able to fund or create a project have the opportunity to do so. Number 2, I love to be able to see any artist that has talent and they want to place their talent in a position where they learn to earn an income. I'm with you. Number 3, I want to be able to see this community utilize the arts as a way of earning income, attracting tourists, and really bringing this community together in healing. So I believe that through the arts and in this area, the arts are becoming a strong point. And I hope it's because of some of the work that I've done to make sure that everyone who's an artist or an art administrator or anyone who is a supporter of the arts have the opportunity to have those services in their community.
All right, I was listening.
Yes.
Growing up in a small town in Arkansas, southeast Arkansas, we were not exposed to a lot of the arts. And of course, that came with being in church all of the time, and that's where our exposure grew. Because I'm sure most of you in here, you were participants on the Christmas program, the Easter program, the Children's Day program, the Mother's Day program. So, and then school played a huge role in the development of the arts for me, because on Fridays, we would have literary society. And each Friday, a different class was responsible for the program. So, of course, you had to learn some type of speech or introduce the speaker. All of that was a part of it. So I love to be on the stage. I knew that I always wanted to be a teacher. I had some very wonderful teachers in my life that directed me and molded me. But I always had the love for the arts. So I knew at an early age, even growing up in Augusta, Arkansas, and being a part of the Christmas programs at my church, because my mother was a youth director. So it didn't matter, we were going to be in Sunday school and we were going to do a lesson review or whatever. But I love to be on the stage, and I know that I wanted to be a teacher. That was a part of what my path was going to take me. So as I developed, I went on to Grambling State University. I got a degree in speech and drama with a minor in journalism. Returned to Arkansas, taught school, went on to Chicago, started my my graduate work at the University of Illinois, returned back to Louisiana, and I went directly into teaching. And the love for the arts just drew, I think, most of my students to me. And we were constantly developing, and I was constantly working with students to develop theater programs regardless of where I was. It didn't matter. We would come together in my home. And after I married that wonderful gentleman right there, I had a beautiful fireplace in my home, and that fireplace became my stage. And that reminded me a lot of the fireplace that was in our home. And we would have the group of students to come over. And then I began to work with the 4th District Missionary Baptist Association in Baton Rouge. And some of those same students followed me. And my love for theater grew. And I told my husband, one day I've got to have my own theater. When I left Baton Rouge in 2002, was recruited to Wiley College. Had an awesome 2 years at Wiley and developed that program there. I had opened Upstage Theater Company in 2002 and had an opportunity to work with some wonderful young people there and saw them blossom to go on to perform in New York and Chicago. And I was kind of laughing, I chuckled when I heard about the intensive training program, because they always tell me, Dr. T, you are so hard, you are just so tough. And they come back and they say, I'm so glad you were so tough on me. And I think that has been a part of, because I thought that I really had some tough teachers in my life. And it was just what they were teaching me, I had an opportunity to teach that to my students. And I was sharing with Neverland earlier, she was asking about some of the things that I was doing, and I told her that last weekend at my theater in Baton Rouge, I had one of my third actors this season to direct a show that I did not have to direct. And when they were interviewed for the article for the newspaper, the gentleman said, well, you know, he said, I'm working with Dr. T, and that's kind of difficult because I've always been the actor and she's been the director, and this time I'm directing her on stage, but I remember everything that she told me, so I'm able to do that. So just going back and looking back over my life over the years, and all of the people that have played major roles in my life, and my love for the arts and my love for theater, I knew early on that I wanted to be a theater teacher. And God has blessed me because I retired in May after 37 years as a teacher and as an administrator. And now I can sit back and I can enjoy some of the fruits of my labor and look at these young people who have gone on to do wonderful things. And I'm truly blessed. And I just want to say, my husband said earlier, I'm the only gentleman in here. But that's all right. That's a wonderful gentleman right there, ladies and gentlemen. Tomorrow we'll be celebrating our 34th anniversary. And it is because of him that we've accomplished so much together, not just Ava Brewster Turner, but Lloyd Turner and Ava Brewster Turner.
Well, it's simple. I've always known since my mother says about the age of 3. I knew about then that I was going to be a gospel singer and a nurse. I'm a singer that acts, that has some dance experience. But just like the ladies on this panel, I came from a long line of great orators, pastors and preachers, and my mother was one of the greatest speakers I've ever known. And from the time I could remember, my grandfather would preach wonderful sermons, just like the story you told me. That's not a story. And my dad preached a sermon that said one time, your gifts will make a room for you, will make room for you. You have these gifts in earthen vessels that were given to you. And you don't take those gifts lightly. My very first acting experience, though, was I was 5 years old, before the churches and the Easter programs and all of those things, at Jail Jones Elementary in Minden, Louisiana. I was a little Dutch girl named Dorothea. And my baby sister who I'm 11 years old, was named after that character. And as I speak today, I'm full because my mother, that great lady, is 85 years old, and she's in transition on her way to see the Lord. And one of the things that she wanted for me was to be one of the greatest actresses she's ever known. So all those stories, she was a great storyteller. One of my favorite poems that she wrote was by Ephraim Title, who was a local Shreveport artist, and it was, "Whoa there, Nebuchadnezzar, where are you trying to go, sir? I have you to know, sir, yous are holding up the line." She would do these wonderful stories in dialect. In school, did the theater thing, but I focused on nursing because I never wanted my passion for the arts. I never wanted to have to struggle. And most artists who are true artists will sacrifice everything. Families, homes. They're called the starving artists, as well you know. And I thank God for this wonderful lady, Vicky, who tries to fix it where artists don't have to starve. She's the one that helped me, along with Angelique Feaster, who is my goddaughter. And it started there. But all the passion that I had, all the anointing that my grandfather and my mother and my father preached about, they said that it's one thing to sing, but you got to know how to sing. You got the anointing that flows. You have to feel it in order to make somebody else feel it. When you sing, or when you speak, or when you act, it has to evoke the emotion. They're going to be angry, or they're going to be happy, or they're going to be sad, but let it never be said that there was nothing. Because then you have not done your job as an actor, as an artist. So therein, my path has always led me. God has always led that path where he put me under people who knew. He put me under people who knew the art. And they taught me to do the art. And I tell any artist, perfect your art form. Perfect it. Wherever there is someone teaching, wherever someone is hard, it's not about whether you like the director, don't like the director. Get what that person has to give you and walk away a greater and better artist. And I'm a living witness that your art, the gift that's in the earthen vessel, will make a way for you. It will make room for you. 15 minutes on the stage can be millions of dollars. But don't ever do an art form that you don't like, that you don't feel a passion for. See, when I get up in the morning, I'm singing. Or if I'm going to bed at night, I'm trying to remember a line of a play I'm on. And I thank God for the people that God has put into my life to allow me to do the gift that's in this earthen vessel. And I sit here today to say thank you for the people like Miss Vicki Marshall. And I'm saying that because she has the pen that can help any artist if they will follow the rules of engagement, follow the laws, follow the steps. I learned that you can't miss a step. You have to go through the process. And if you're not willing to go through the process, then you'll never reach the success that God truly has for you. So that's what I have to say. I'm a singer that acts, that has some dance experience. And I thank God for all of it.